Hello folks, and welcome to Noob-Splaining. My name is Wolf. Now, if this is your first time around here, then this is where I explain the crazy, over-the-top world of Warhammer 40,000 that nerds like me love so much. In this particular series, I'm looking at the new combat patrol boxes, comparing them to the old versions, and giving you a basic idea of how the units should be used and what to add next to your collection. So, hit subscribe, grab a drink, settle in, and get comfy. Prepare for a Noob-Splaining session. So before we get into it, remember, if you want a shout out, just email me on the email address in the description. And also, if you do happen to have a bit of spare change, instead of buying me and Victor a coffee, please donate to my Just Giving page for the charity boxing event I'm doing in November 2024. No matter how big or small your donation, it all goes to the Great Ormond Street Children's Hospital. And besides, I'm not exactly a Chad, so I'm going to get my face kicked in, so any support would be much appreciated. The Adepta Sororitas, or if you're old school like me, the Sisters of Battle, were one of the original armies released for 40k when it moved from being an RPG skirmish game that was the original Rogue Trader book to a full-on tabletop wargame with the release of 2nd edition rules. As I've mentioned before, many players, myself included, consider 2nd edition to be the actual 1st edition of the game, and back then the choice of factions was much lower, consisting of Space Marines, Astra Militarum, Astra Miller what? You're in the fucking guard, son! Sisters of Battle, Chaos, Orcs, Tyranids, and Eldar, as well as a couple of Space Marine chapter specific codexes and the Assassin's supplement. So that was it. 7 factions to choose from, compared to the 17 factions today, not including the sub-factions, and 26 if you do. Out of those 7 original factions, 2 were totally brand new to the setting and needed writing in, so we were told the Tyranids came from outside our galaxy and nearly ate the Ultramarines, which would be no major loss in my opinion. And the Sisters of Battle, as they were known at the time, had their lore introduced by a Twitter message saying they had always been there. Wait a fucking minute, no I wasn't, Victor. Are you still bitter over that bit of lore? Guess I need to improv this bit then. The Sisters of Battle are the militant arm of the church, because let's face it, every self-respecting church has a well-organised, highly trained and equipped army, and if your church doesn't have a full-blown military arm, find a church that does. Anyway, the Sisters only exist to a loophole in the lore that exists in the lore of Warhammer 40,000, and let's see YouTube's auto-subtitles fuck that up. I love rewatching my vids with the subtitles on, just to see how badly the auto-subtitles tries to spell Zinch. Anyway, as I have covered their lore in greater depth in my coverage of the old combat patrol box, I will just go into it very fucking briefly. Some twat called George Van Dyer found a reclusive group of religious women who trained in everything martial and worshipped Emperor Chris, as you should. He tricked them into becoming his personal bodyguard, and then went a rampage across the galaxy claiming he is the living embodiment of Emperor Chris. They made it all the way to Earth when some Space Marines got involved and found the Sisters of Battle were actually really fucking tough and managed to hold off the Space Marines for quite some time, which really confused them. Eventually Custodes heard all the commotion and took the leadership of the Sisters to see Emperor Chris himself. Nobody knows exactly what Emperor Chris said, but when the leadership of the Sisters came out of his throne room, they were absolutely fucking furious. So he probably asked them why the dishwashers are leading a revolt against him. Anyway, they promptly stormed back to George like they're returning a faulty iron to Walmart and cut his fucking head off. Now, because they wear power armor and have bolters, many people just call them female Space Marines, but they're not, and at best this is a disservice to the Sisters, and at worst blatant ignorance and stupidity on your part. You see, their male cousins, the actual Space Marines, have 19 or 21 genetic enhancements, depending on whether they're the firstborn Astartes or the 2nd generation Primaris. One of those enhancements is the Black Carapace, which allows them to physically link their nervous system to their power armor. The Sisters have none of that shit, and yet they still get around 95% effectiveness out of their power armor from sheer fucking willpower. In the lore, the Sisters are fucking tough. I mean, they had 3 weeks on Fenris fighting the Space Wolves. In fairness, the Wolves were not trying to kill them, but to just slap the stupid out of them, which they did very well on account that the Sisters have not been back to Fenris since. Not sure if this happened before or after the Wolves also kicked the shit out of the Grey Knights, but as a general rule of thumb, don't go to Fenris and call the Wolves bad names. The Sisters themselves have a Holy Trinity, but this is 40k, so their Holy Trinity is the Bolter, Flamer and Melt Gun, and these ladies are so zealous they will strap flamers and melter guns to everything, to such an extent even the Salamanders think they need to calm down a little. because telling an overzealous religious nutjob of a woman to calm down always fucking works. Anyway, onto the box set. So, this box set has changed a lot. Previously we got a nice balanced box with a mix of range units and melee units complete with a transport and pretty much a melee only dreadnought. The problem is, looking back at that box set, it was a jack of all trades and master of none. You got a little bit of this and a little bit of that and no real theme to the box. Now many people will look at this new box and wonder where all the good models went. Now my argument is, you don't want good looking models, you want an instant force in a box that feels like the faction you've chosen, not some generic 500 point list of models. So, now in the box we get the following: 1 Canoness, 5 Celestian Sacrosancts, 10 Battle Sisters with an Incenser Cherub, because when you're burning the flesh of your enemies, some nice Yankee candle smells to hide the stench is always nice, and 10 Arco-Flagellants. We also get 2 sets of transfer sheets, and a small price increase in the cost of a combat patrol box to £100. Wait a fucking minute! I'm sure they're only 95 quid a month ago. When did they become 100? Anyway, let's break this box down. The 10 Battle Sisters are armed with bolters mainly, but one will have a flamer for extra burny hot on lightly armoured infantry, and one should have a multi-melter, which although it only has a short range of 18 inch, ideally less than 9 to get the weapon's full potential, that weapon is what you use to fuck up the enemy's tough characters and any vehicle's day. With that short range, you need to make sure that you're pushing this unit towards your enemy and not getting charged in return. This is where the rest of the box set comes into play. The Canoness can go toe-to-toe with most other characters from combat patrol sets. The Arco-Flagellants are good at tearing through light and medium infantry, and the Sacrosancts can bludgeon to death most heavy infantry. So pile them all on and let them do their thing while you'll move your Battle Sisters up to finish the job. This is a very melee and close combat range set, which is very close to the general playstyle of the Sisters, which is be aggressive and get stuck in. Their version of a dreadnought is the Penitent engines, and they come in pairs, so it gives you an idea of how weak they are compared to actual dreadnoughts. And the only tank in their codex worth getting excited about is the Castigator, and 1 or 2 of these won't go amiss in your collection. Chances are, once you've chopped your enemy up for a few games in a row, they're going to start placing armoured vehicles or heavy infantry on the table. So to counter that, you want to get some Retributor squads for their big guns, some Paragon warsuits for their bigger guns, but also their ability to kick the teeth down their opponent's throat when it comes to melee. But overall, the playstyle of the Sisters is melee combat and short range excessive firepower, owing to their love of flamers and melters. They do have a few new units that can sit back and shoot, but not many, so the vast bulk of the Sisters units are a very aggressive playstyle, and if you're too cautious with them, you will get beat. So don't fuck about and get stuck in quickly. Overall, I think this is a great improvement on the Sororitas box set. It really demonstrates the playstyle of the Sisters you will need to use to start winning battles. Yes, I do agree that losing the Penitent engine and the Rhino is a shame, but overall this is a more accurate themed box set for the Sisters, I feel. I mean, you don't buy a Clubland Extreme CD and expect to hear classical music. And so there we have it, folks, and that brings us to the end of this video. If you made it this far and haven't subscribed yet, please do so. If you're still listening at this point though, thank you for taking the time to watch my content, and I have another small favour to ask of you. Like the video, leave a comment, but most importantly, remember to show it to someone who could do with some Noob-Splaining in their life. Take care, folks. I'll see you next time.